Hey, good evening. My name is Michael Hind. I'm the CEO of the Tri-Cities Chamber of Commerce. Welcome. Full house tonight. We had one last night in Port Moody too, so this is great to see all the interest. It's really fantastic that you all came out, especially a night like tonight. If you don't know much about the Chamber, we've got about 1,000 businesses in the Tri-Cities as members of the Chamber. We are the voice of business. We advocate on all levels of government for the business community, and we also work to educate the businesses so they can do their jobs better, and whatever we can do to help business thrive, because we believe with strong business comes a strong community. So if you got any questions or want any more information, go to our website and check us out. And we got lots going on. In fact, on October 24th at the Hard Rock Casino, we have our business showcase with about 100 businesses down there showing off what they're doing. And it's free and it's open to the public, and there is beer tasting there from the Brewers Row, so you might want to go down there. Anyways, lots going on in the Chamber. It's all great. This evening's debate is generously sponsored by the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, and I want to thank them for their generous support. Big round of applause to the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, please. We got a couple reps over there in the corner. Hands up. Thank you very much. And I'm sure there'll be a real estate question or two or three on the agenda tonight, which there should be. The date, as I said, the debate's also being broadcast live on Facebook for those of you who couldn't make it out. I think last night, by the end of the night, we had 900 views on Facebook. That's before the debate even ended. So there's lots of people out there watching, so it's being recorded for prosperity, gentlemen and ladies. And we want to thank Tri-Cities Community TV, Jeff Scott and his crew. They're doing a bang-up job doing this. They operate on a bit of a shoestring, but they are put so much time in. So a big round of applause for Tri-Cities Community TV, please. And as you see, we're using Slido for questions. So if you've got a smartphone, go to slido.com, put that hashtag in there, and you can enter questions in. You can vote on the questions that are up there and say, hey, I want this one to be asked first. And the higher the votes, the more they go up the list. If for some reason you don't have a smartphone or want to ask a question, we do have cards down here. And we will, if you put your hand up, we will bring a card to you. You can write it down. We'll enter it in manually, and hopefully it'll get in there. The earlier you do that, the better chance you got getting it up there. So remember the key words to go on to Slido. What else we got here? We're going to do 2 live poll questions too. We did this last night, and it turned out pretty well. So you can go on to Slido. You can vote on these 2 live poll questions. We'll give you the results later in the evening. The first question is, are you decided or undecided on who you will vote for in the upcoming federal election? Well, then go on, take out your smartphone and plug it in. Yes, you are. It was interesting last night because I won't tell you what the results were, but it was a bit surprising. And the second poll question is, what are the top 3 issues influencing your choice of vote in the upcoming federal election? And there's the choices right there. Go on your smartphone, go on to Slido, enter in one of those, 3 of those, and at the end of the night, we'll bring those up. And again, it was very interesting last night too to see all that. So I think I've covered all the logistics for the night, and I'm done talking because I talk too much, but then I got Dave coming up. So without any further ado, we're going to bring up our moderator. He works for Dominion Lending. He's been a fixture in the community. He's done a number of these debates, so it's really great to have him. Mr. Dave Teixeira. Come on up, Dave.
Hi, good evening, and thank you very much for coming out. And I think it's very apropos that we're holding this in a theater, a political debate in a theater, because much like theater, when you come to the theater, you can be highly entertained. You could perhaps be frustrated, but hopefully at the end of it, you've had some thought-provoking performance, and I'm sure we're going to have that here this evening. So I'm just going to lower this a little bit there. And as you know, the federal election is in full swing right now. We have the candidates out door knocking. We've got the signs up. We have promises being made. I understand some of them will be kept. And as well, we have the pundits in the crowd as well, making lots of observations. We have the candidates about to speak, and most of all, we have you about to make a very big decision on October 21st on who you want to represent the riding of Coquitlam-Port Coquitlam. So with that in mind, behind me, or beside me, I suppose, are the 5 major party candidates running to be your member of parliament in the riding of Coquitlam-Port Coquitlam. So please hold your applause as I introduce all the candidates from your left to my right. Running for the New Democratic Party of Canada, Christina Gower. Running for the Conservative Party of Canada, Nicholas Inslee. Running for the Liberal Party of Canada, Ron McKinnon. Running for the Green Party of Canada, Brad Nickason. And running for the People's Party of Canada, Roland Spornicue. Welcome. All right, like any good sort of activity in a theater, there are some rules to be had here, but they're pretty simple. First, we'll quickly go over the format for the debate for tonight. The location of the candidates on stage and speaking order for opening and closing statements has been determined by alphabetical order of the candidates' last names from left to right. To begin, each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. We will then move into the debate portion of the night where the candidates will be asked a series of questions, started with a few prepared by the Tri-City Chamber of Commerce, and subsequently moving to those shared on Slido by the audience. So I do hope that you've taken advantage of downloading the software and logging in. If you are having a problem with that, there are some slips of paper that are here at the table, and as time goes on, if there's time, we'll see if we take questions from the crowd. But doing this in the past, I know a lot of questions come in on Slido, so that's our preferred method for this evening. So check out slido.com and use the login code there, hashtag Coquit, I'm not sure how you say that, COQ-POCO. There you go. Candidates are asked to keep their answers to 1 minute each. Candidates are welcome to respond to any comment or follow-up question directed their way by another candidate, but they must keep those responses to 30 seconds. After the debate portion, we'll have 2 minutes each for closing statements. So I hope that all made sense. Candidates, are you ready? I love those nods of silence. Great, off we go. So let's move to opening statements. As we said, our first statement from the NDP is Christina Gower.
Hello. Okay, I'll just tell you a little bit about why I'm doing this. I'm a registered psychiatric nurse. I started out as an activist. I became a nurse as an activist. I was really concerned about Riverview closing and the downtown east side filling with vulnerable population, and I thought that was so sad that I was going to go and get my degree and then lobby government to make some changes, find out where the gaps in the system are. So that's exactly what I did. After 5 years, actually Brad and I are both on the same coalition for a healthy Riverview. We were successful in getting promises from the Greens and the NDP to retain the lands for mental health. And beyond that, I kind of thought I could rest, but with all the people flooding my doors at the ER where I work in Royal Columbian that were suicidal from not having housing, I had a new challenge to deal with. I kind of called it the new mental illness is under housing. So I had seniors coming in that are on a pension, they're now widowed, they now can't afford to live in their home that they built with their spouse, and they don't know what to do, or they have a pet, and they're living in their car. So I became an affordable housing advocate. I organized the first affordable housing rally in Vancouver, or in BC, actually. And then after that, we're still working through that. I don't know where that's going to go provincially, but certainly with the federal plan, I'm really pleased to announce that we are going to build 500,000 units of affordable housing. And then I also worked on the opioid crisis. So I sat on the Northwest Fraser Division of GP's Opiate Response Group, and we worked together to come up with some plans. They're starting to trickle into place now. And I'm on the Tri-Cities Mental Health Advisory Committee. I've worked with the BC Health Coalition. Environmentally, of course, a member of Greenpeace for 27 years. I've been out there with Eco-Justice, Lead Now, doing a whole bunch of stuff. So I hope that all that work comes to fruition here and I can actually take it to Ottawa.
Great, thank you, Christina. Next, Nicholas Inslee from the Conservative Party of Canada.
Good evening. I'm Nickason, the Conservative candidate here in Coquitlam-Port Coquitlam. I just want to begin by saying thank you to the Chamber for hosting us this evening and for Dave for attempting to moderate us. And also, of course, for you coming out this evening. This is a couple hours out of your nights to come and hear from us on some of the important issues facing our community. I'm certain you'll regret that this is how you spent your time by the end of the night, but I'm glad that you're here. So as your Conservative candidate here in Coquitlam-Port Coquitlam, I'm running because I'm a young father, and I want to make certain that I'm leaving this country in better shape than I found it for the next generation. I'm running because I want to see a Canada where everyone can get ahead, where we can work to lower taxes and where we can make life more affordable for families, where we have a government that spends responsibly and works to balance the budget. I'm running because I want to make certain that every family has the opportunity to get ahead, and I'm looking forward to hopefully representing you in Ottawa.
Great. Thank you, Nicholas. Next up from the Liberal Party of Canada, Ron McKinnon.
Hi, I'm Ron McKinnon. I'd like to first acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of the Coquitlam peoples who have lived here for thousands of years. For the past 4 years, it has been my privilege to be your member of Parliament advocating for you and representing your best interests. I've long been a tireless advocate for equality, fairness, and inclusion. I became involved in politics because I wanted to be a part of the decisions that affected my family and my community. I wanted to put empathy into politics and turn its focus to the least privileged among us.
Can you talk closer to your mic?
Certainly.
Thank you.
My private member's bill, the Good Samaritan Drug Overdose Act, removes many of the barriers to people calling for help in an overdose crisis. It saves lives. A few weeks ago, I spoke with a constituent in my office who told me that her son was alive today because of this bill. It's a story that I've heard time and again. As a government, our focus has been to help people, to look after their families, to help them get ahead, and to achieve their dreams. We cut taxes for 9 out of 10 people. This means families have $2,000 more in their pockets every year, and a re-elected Liberal government is going to cut your taxes even more. We have a strong and growing economy. Unemployment is at an all-time low. Prosperity is on the rise, and over 900,000 people are no longer living in poverty. Our national housing strategy will cut homelessness in half in 10 years and remove over 500,000 families from core housing need. We have done more for Indigenous rights and reconciliation than any government in at least the last 50 years. And though we have accomplished a lot, there is a lot more still to do. And I'll tell you more about that in the wrap-up. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ron. Next up from the Green Party, Brad Nickason.
Good evening. I'm Brad Nickason. I was here 4 years ago, basically doing exactly the same thing, advocating for the same thing. I became a member of the Green Party because I have 3 daughters, and my goal is to express upon the people of Canada to understand what it exactly is that what we're facing. We're not facing a catastrophe that's coming forward, but we're facing a future for them, for our children, that is uncertain and very, very distressing as a parent to consider. And I'm hoping that I can share that with you in such a way that we can all begin to look at the gravity of this situation. There was a time in our country when people were asked to step up and face a threat that the rest of the country or the rest of the world had to face with us. And those people at that time did exactly that. They saw a problem in the future or that the world was facing, and they stepped up. But in the last 30 years, as long as I've been alive, we've seen this threat in the future coming towards us, creeping towards us, and we keep putting it off. We keep hearing people say, well, we can do that a little later. Well, you know, it's not really that bad. We have people that deny this issue. And I'm saying that we can no longer do that. We need to face this issue and do it for our children so that when their time comes, they have a chance to live the kind of lives that we've lived. I hope my goal here is to express upon you that we need to make these decisions based on evidence. So I hope you'll work with me and in the coming days, think about voting green.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, from the People's Party of Canada, Roland Spornicu.
Well, good evening. I am an immigrant. What a news. I was born in Romania during the toughest communist times. So I experienced how the true Marxism was in Romania, and then in 1989 I went through a very violent and bloody revolution, and we said that everything is going to be better, and I was very wrong. It wasn't better. Actually, the neo-Marxism and neo-communism was implemented in that part of the world, and I experienced what that means. That means corporate welfare, corruption, suppression of the the freedom of expression, so all those kind of things. Then I was thinking a better solution for me and for my family, to be honest, and I learned about the great Canadian way of living. So I learned about the values, the common Canadian values, about the equality, about the patriotism, about the environmental citizenship. So I said, yeah, that resonates with me, let's come here. I went through a very long process to be accepted here, and I took that as a privilege. Now, as many people who are coming from that part of the world, from the socialist bloc, I am very concerned with the sharp left turn the actual government took. Okay. So therefore, I searched for a party which will have values which matches my values. I found PPC, and I am happy that I resonate with their mission to unite all Canadians and to uphold the Canadian values. Because I resonate with them, I decided to put aside my business endeavors, to put in line my reputation, and to spend the time and resources and represent them in this campaign. I am not a politician. A politician will tell you only popular things which may not be true. I can tell you things which are true, but may not be popular. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. Those are your 5 candidates, ladies and gentlemen. So we're now going to enter into the debate portion of our evening. And as a reminder, 2 reminders is 1, speak very close to the microphone. We have a couple hundred people here and millions watching on Facebook this evening. So we want to make sure that they all have the opportunity to hear your voice along with seeing who you are, but especially that voice part I think is quite important. The second reminder is each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the question as asked. Candidates may comment or ask a follow-up question to the other candidates for 30 seconds if it's on point. So please don't deviate if it's a question on housing. Let's not move over to the environment quite so quickly. We'll get to all the big issues, trust me. Follow-up questions must remain on topic, it says here again. We will begin the debate with a few chamber-prepared questions and subsequently move on to the audience questions. Let's get started. Here is the first chamber question. In 2017, approximately 1.1 million people were employed by small business in British Columbia. This accounts for 59% of all private sector employment and 35% of the province's GDP, both strong numbers compared to the Canadian average. If elected, what plans do you have to help BC small businesses succeed and expand so they can employ more British Columbians and increase the provincial GDP? So we'll start in the order that we started the opening statements, and for Christina Gower from the NDP.
Sure. Okay, so obviously a huge economic impact, our small business. What I would do, first of all, is empower people to have spending money by making life more affordable. You cannot support a small business without having the money to spend there. And people are really spread thin right now just to pay for the basics for housing, for healthcare, for their medications. And so we would work to get really good jobs. We would work to cover the cost of dental, more mental health care, and universal pharmacare, and that would free up some income so that people could support small businesses.
Thank you so much. Are there any follow-up questions or comments from the candidates for Christina? Everyone goes first, I've just been told. I was switching up the rules here. All right, I apologize. Thank you for that, Michael. Next up, Nicholas Inslee from the Conservative Party of Canada.
So our party has a fantastic track record when it comes to lowering taxes for small business owners, recognizing that they are an important contributor to our Canada's economic success and an important employer in our economy. We want to make certain that we continue down that road by reducing red tape for small businesses. So part of our plan includes, repealing unnecessary regulation, appointing a minister who will be responsible for reducing red tape so that business owners can spend time doing the work that they need to do to grow and to prosper, rather than being tied up in regulation. That's what we're focused on, and we want to make certain that small businesses can continue to prosper.
Okay, thank you, Nicholas. Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party.
Thanks, Dave. Everybody's going to reduce red tape. It's in our platform, too. We slashed the tax rate to 9% from 11%. It's the lowest rate in the G7. We made it easier to upgrade and modernize equipment and to introduce green technology. And our economy is as strong as it's been in in 40 years, and our economy continues to grow. That bodes very well for business. We have opened up trade to the Pacific Rim, to Europe, and to the United States. We now have preferred access to over 1.5 billion people, which means it's a lot of great business opportunities to pursue. We have trade commissioners that will help people to build those relationships in foreign trade to foreign countries. We are slashing the cost of incorporation for up to 2,000 businesses a year, entrepreneurial businesses a year. We're going to provide up to $50,000 of startup capital. We have
And
okay.
the bell just beat you there, Ron. Next up for the Green Party, Brad Nickason.
The Green Party's, of course, the Green Party's plan is to work in the direction of dealing with the coming climate issue. So what we like to do is we are thinking in terms of jobs in the future, building opportunities in the future for Canadians to work towards green technology. For instance, some of the jobs that we're looking at in the future is retrofitting homes and buildings, retrofitting them and building new homes that are carbon neutral, so that how that helps us in our communities is it provides our children jobs, it provides us jobs. We're also looking at free tuition, so that what we're doing is pushing kids into, moving kids in towards a position where they have intelligent jobs, and also not putting them in debt so that they can afford to participate in our economy, so that they can rent houses, so that they can go to dinner at our restaurants, so that they can participate.
Thank you very much. And next up is Roland Spornicue from the People's Party of Canada.
So we know that the backbone of the economy are the small businesses. However, our party is not going to do absolutely anything specifically for BC. It's going to do for the entire small businesses in Canada. What we are going to do is we are going to lower the income tax to 10% from average 15%, the federal income tax. And we are going to totally abolish the capital gain tax. That will put more money in the pockets of the small businesses, and they will be able to invest, and we are going to stimulate with programs which will foster the innovation in green technologies, sustainable technologies in general. So apart from that, we are going to finish totally the corporate welfare, so that money is going to be redirected to this kind of programs for small businesses. So investment, innovation, and entrepreneurship is in our program. 10% federal taxes, we abolish the capital gain taxes, and put more money in small business hands.
Thank you very much. And yes, please applaud. And if the candidates have questions for each other, I know you're going to ask them in a respectful way that I don't actually have to moderate, so I'll leave it to you.
Okay, so I'm going to just put this generally out there for all of you. Cutting taxes is certainly one way to put more money in certain pockets, but what we found in the past is that the tax cuts are given to the upper echelon, to the elite and the well-connected, and the corporations and the giants. So what I'm wondering is what are the austerity measures that are going to be put in place to cover your taxes if you're giving more tax cuts across broad stroke across the whole population? Of what are you going to cut?
Right, and Roland, I saw your hand up so politely, so I have to let you go.
So every year Canada is spending about $5 billion in foreign aid. We give money to countries to build their roads, their schools, and other kind of projects, right? This money is going to be stopped to go outside. This money is going to be redirected to Canada. Another $5 billion are giving in corporate welfare. We are going to finish the corporate welfare, and this money is going to come back to us. So therefore, we can afford to reduce the taxes, the federal taxes, to 10%, and to abolish totally the capital gain taxes.
Right, thank you so much.
So that's the source.
Anything further from the candidates on small business in British Columbia? Ron McKinnon.
Tax cuts by themselves don't necessarily stimulate business. It all depends on where you make the cuts and where you make the investments. So we have made investments in women, in entrepreneurship, in making sure we have more women in business. That's one of the reasons why our economy is growing, not only women-owned business and women operating business, but all small businesses are operating much better, much more effectively, and this generates a lot more revenue for the country. So that's where the money comes from to offset the tax cuts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, Ron, we'll take another shot.
Well, I need to respond.
Into the microphone, though.
I need to respond to Mr. McKinnon. So giving tax cuts or any incentives to different groups of people, that will create division. We are going to stimulate all businesses. Doesn't matter they are run by women, by I don't know which kind of immigrants from which part of the world, or from senior peoples and so on. So for absolutely everybody, one of the values of this country is equity and fairness, and we are going to apply that in business as well.
Thank you, Roland. See, I saw movement, Ron.
Sure.
I'm glad I saw movement.
I think that's a rather simplistic view of how to do taxes and how to do tax cuts. I know every government uses tax policy to guide the economy in ways that it needs to go, and we have a lot of experts out there in place to help us decide how to do that. So we don't want to give up those kind of tools that help us to manage our economy and to manage the success of our country.
Thank you. And we're going to move on to our next question. So thank you very much, candidates. Appreciate that follow-up, and thank you. All right, let's move on to question number 2. This is from the Chamber once again. Canada is a trading nation with exports directly linked to 1 in 5 Canadian jobs. Canada's prosperity requires continued investment in trade-enabling infrastructure. If elected, what plans do you have to sustainably, I should say, invest in Canada's Asia-Pacific gateway, particularly coastal ports and Western Canadian railroad facilities? And we'll start with Nicholas Inslee from the Conservative Party of Canada.
So Canada very much is a trading nation. Our government, when we were previously in power, initiated over 50 different trade agreements with countries across the world. That was a fantastic legacy to believe. It opened up new opportunities for Canadian businesses to grow and to prosper. Our government also undertook significant investment in infrastructure. You know, we invested massively in ensuring that we had the roads and the systems in place in order to move our product to market. We're going to continue down that path so that Canadian businesses can continue to grow and that they continue to produce good jobs for Canadians.
Thank you. Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
I think my previous answer anticipated the whole trade question a little bit. We certainly recognize the value of trade. This is the largest port in Canada. $120 billion a year goes through here. We have been engaged with the Port Authority and the railroads, for example, as well as other parties to upgrade the rail links through our community. We have engineering underway to upgrade the crossings at Westwood Street at Kingsway and to twin the line along Colony Farms to actually to give the people in Colony Farm in the First Nation there full access when there's trains blocking the road and so forth. We recognize we have trade commissioners, as I started to mention before, that will help people to do business overseas. We have mentorship available through the Business Development Bank and Export Development Bank that we are making free.
So close again. Thank you, Ron. And for the Green Party, Brad Nickason.
The Green Party's plan is to modernize our rail systems across Canada, invest heavily in that so that we are using rail to transport things, transport goods throughout Canada. Our trade, for the most part, that's where our plan moves towards with regards to transportation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Roland.
One of our most valuable resources is oil. So our party is going to support the building of the pipeline. Our party is going to support any project in infrastructure, and also our party will abolish the interprovincial trade barriers, which will let merchandise to go freely between the provinces and outside the country.
Christina Gower, NDP.
So trade negotiations historically have put the rich corporations ahead of working people. The NDP takes trade seriously. The PBO has said that NAFTA will increase costs of medication by an average annual cost of $23.8 million between 2015 and 2023. That's a lot of money out of your pocket. The PBO also said that CETA will increase the total annual national cost of medication by $392 million. So a study shows also that our GDP will shrink with the new NAFTA. We will support fair trade that broadens opportunity, protects industries, and upholds labor standards, environmental protections, and human rights. We will always defend Canadian workers in trade negotiations and protect the supply management. We'll stand up against unfair tariffs. We'll have transparent negotiations. A lot of like these deals have been, like the TPP and the NAFTA, have been behind closed doors, and we're a bit void in the information.
Thank you. We'll now take questions. Well, one piece of the question I don't think was answered, in my opinion, as being an observer here this evening, in full, was if elected, what plans you have to sustainably invest in Canada's Asia-Pacific Gateway. Perhaps anyone can comment on that as you're asking questions or comments to each other.
I'll answer that.
Thank you, Ron.
Certainly the rail crossings I mentioned, the Pacific Gateway.
And into the microphone, Ron,
The
sorry.
Pacific Gateway project, which is to upgrade the whole connection between the port and the rest of Canada. If there's any bottlenecks in the port, any bottlenecks in the rail lines, we can't get our trade to market, we can't get foreign goods back here. So this is just one among many. Of course, we are also always dealing with other countries in terms of diplomatic relations, building new trade relationships, and working with our businesses to help facilitate trade with those other countries.
Thank you, Ron. Anyone else with a response, a comment, a question for each other?
I have a question for Ron. Okay, so international trade means a carbon footprint. So has your party come up with any ways that you're going to decrease that by expanding trade internationally or overseas?
Well, I don't think we want to stop foreign trade.
No.
We need, and of course ships burn fuel and so forth, but we are proposing a clean fuel standard, and we are promoting it in our port. We have facilities that the port is developing to allow more ships to be on shore power when they're docked here and so forth. I think there's all kinds of opportunities going forward to develop new technologies for driving ships, for moving them through the water in a much more ecologically sound basis. And I think that's an opportunity for us for development, for entrepreneurship, for innovation. And there's a $2.5 trillion economy out there in green technology, and I think we need to take a part of it.
Thank you, Ron. Seeing no other movement, let's move on to question number 3. That is again written from or by the Chamber, but could have been written by my 18-year-old daughter. So for the candidates, what is your plan to ensure Canada's debt burden remains low and affordable today and for future generations? Yeah, I guess my daughter's here. Thanks, Ken. So anyways, Liberal Party of Canada candidate, Ron McKinnon.
So we have the lowest,
Yes.
we have the lowest debt burden in the entire G7, and we're spending less on debt servicing than during the Conservative era. We're one of the only 2 G7 countries with a AAA credit rating. What that means is we have a really, really strong economy. We have a very good ability to service the debt we have. We have to look after that. We have to keep growing our economy. We have to keep our businesses flourishing. We have to keep people employed, because that's how we're going to pay for our services. That's how we're going to keep going forward. And over time, as we go year by year, we are forecasting that our debt burden will actually decline as a function of our economy.
Thank you. Brad Nickason, Green Party of Canada.
So this creates a question for me. What good is it for us to worry about our debt burden if our future is uncertain, and what happens is we're going to spend all the money that we're working for to mitigate climate change in the future? So if we're doing a lot of the trade that we're speaking of, and we're worrying about that, but we're not facing the future issue around climate change.
Into the microphone, sorry. Ryan. Yeah,
Not loud enough?
not loud enough.
Okay. If we're not facing that issue, and we're not looking at that particular problem, then what becomes of all of our work in the future of that way? So I think what we can be doing to ensure trade is by beginning to invest, ensure trade, ensure good jobs for the people that are around prosperity, is start investing now in the technology of the future.
Thank you, Brad. Roland Sporticu, People's Party of Canada.
So if I correctly understood the question, it is about the future generation and the debt burden.
That's correct.
So first of all, the short response it is that our party plan is to balance the budget within one mandate. The longer response it is that, as I said, redirecting money from foreign aid and putting more money in the Canadian pockets, in the Canadian business pockets, will enable investment in the Canadian economy. So the investment will create growth. The growth will help to balance the budget.
Thank you so much. Christina Gower, NDP.
So historically, I've got some data. There's NDP has balanced their budgets across both province and federal 40% of the time, and that's actually the best showing for any of the leading parties. The next is Conservative, and the next is Liberals, 33% and 23%. And then when you look at our deficits, when we're in deficit, it's an average of 0.5% for NDP. It's 1.1% for Conservative and 1.3% for Liberals. We have a good track record with the NDP of being sensible with our money, and it's because we take care of problems before they happen. We take care of the people. We make sure your health care is there. We don't want to pay for government in the most expensive way possible. I see it every day in the hospital where people are not able to afford their medication and they land in a merge, or they don't have the mental health care they need and they land in a merge. And it's just one sector, healthcare. I mean, it's rampant all over the place. If we do not make sure that people are taking care of their families, having good jobs, then we obviously are going to end up in a position where...
Thank you, Christina. Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada.
Our party has a plan to responsibly balance the budget so that we can make certain that we're lowering taxes for families and putting more money in people's pockets. We have a track record of delivering on this for Canadians. Under the previous Conservative government, we took GST from 7% to 5%. We introduced the universal child care benefit. We made certain that every family got a little bit of extra money to support their children. We introduced a number of different tax credits to help families get ahead. And we did all this whilst balancing the budget responsibly. We're going to continue down that path. This election, we're also committed to making certain we reduce corporate welfare, because wealthy multinational corporations should not be receiving taxpayer dollars in subsidies. That's what our plan is for this next election, and that's what we're going to do.
Thank you, Nicholas. Questions, comments?
I have a question for Mr. Inslee. You said you're really good at balancing the budget. However, the last government had 2 years of surplus as a residue of Mr. Martin, and you squandered that. You ran heavy deficits right up until the last year, and you managed to squeak in a nominal deficit by shorting veterans, by laying off CRA staff, by laying off Immigration and Refugee Board staff, and so forth. 75% of the debt that Canada has occurred under a Conservative government. So I wonder how you can justify the statement that you are good managers of money and that you can balance the budget.
Thank you, Ron. Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party, with a response.
Under Canada's Economic Action Plan, our party spent during a period of recession in order to ensure that our economy would get back on track. We're proud of that track record. It was targeted, short-term infrastructure investments that left a lasting legacy across communities in Canada. That's how we managed to balance the budget, and we did it responsibly. Now, the Liberals, on the other hand, Ron, I mean, I'd ask you, when do you plan on balancing the budget? Sorry, unless it's just going to balance itself.
Mr. McKinnon, would you care to respond?
Well, absolutely. I think that it is dangerous to fixate on one line of the balance sheet. When you do that, you lose track of your liabilities, you lose track of your assets. We have a serious infrastructure deficit in this country. We have serious lacks everywhere. If you focus on only only the bottom line and forget all the lines up in between, you get a very skewed result. You might be able to balance the budget, but you do so by creating a government that can't function, a government that can't deliver any services, a government that takes years to get immigrants visas processed, a government that takes years to track down, that can't track down
Thank you, Ron.
CRA frauds.
Thank you, Ron. I want to open it up to the other three candidates. Thank you. You proved my theater whole thing going on there, so thank you. A little bit of sparring and a little bit of humor apparently felt by some of the audience members. But the other candidates like to jump in.
Yes.
Roll.
So I like to hear that the Conservative Party is actually seeking, like the PPC, to reduce the corporate welfare. I have some facts here. 2018 study by the School of Public Policy at the University of Calgary found 14 billion worth of direct and indirect federal business subsidies to big businesses. This is something which should finish. This kind of money should be redirected in the economy, eventually to the small businesses.
Thank you.
I give you only one example. So quite recently, the government gave $50 million to Loblaw to buy refrigerators. And that was unasked for.
Thank you.
Loblaw wouldn't ask for that.
One last question or comment from anyone? Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada.
This is a question for Ron. Ron, whilst the Liberal Party has added $71 billion to our national debt and mounting, breaking an election promise to keep that at $30 billion, your party just recently announced that you're also committed to giving people tax deductions for when they go camping of up to $2,000. That's going to cost the federal treasury millions of dollars without doing anything to help working families. I think that everyone here would like to understand how your party thinks that that's responsible.
Rod McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
Our promise was to invest in Canada and to invest in Canadians, and we did that. We created the Canada Child Benefit, which brings $6.5 million every month into this riding, money that does not go to Swiss bank accounts, does not go to Cayman Island bank accounts. It goes back into the community and generates 7 or 8 times that much activity. It benefits 12,000 families. It benefits 22,000 children. We invested in Canada, we invested in Canadians, and that makes the economy grow, that makes the economy thrive. And as we do so, our tax liabilities are covered off by the growing economy.
Thank you, Rod.
Your promise was to balance the budget.
Christina's promising me she has a short comment, which hopefully
You
doesn't
might have decreased the poverty, but you didn't change the number that poverty sits at, and the cost of living has skyrocketed through the roof, so they're still in poverty.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, candidates. Just for my interest's sake here in the audience, who here is under the age of 30? Because that was kind of talking to you. Who's here under 30 willingly? No? Okay. Okay, it's a Thursday night, right? No, thank you so much, because I think, honestly, as I look through the crowd, most of us have the Arctic highlights that make us so attractive and smart, but it'd be great to see more of our younger people in the crowd, and thank you for the candidates for answering that. I also received a text during that said, please continue to have the really smart candidate speaking into the microphone, so I'll let you figure out whoever that is, but all of you, please continue to talk into the microphone so we can hear. Again, the millions at home want to hear what you're saying. And for those who didn't hear that, we must articulate all our words. Again, it is theater, so we'll do that. But thank you for that. We'll make sure we do that. And thank you for the audience participation part of that part of our segment. So let's move on to our next question. And this is our last prepared question, because we'll be moving into questions from the audience. And again, I'll just remind you before I start this question that you can submit your questions via Slido, slido.com, and enter in the code on the screen there, COQ-POCO. We'd love to get your questions, and we'll make sure that we get them up on the screen behind the candidates and in front of the candidates. We'll make sure we get to those shortly. All right, this question, our last prepared question, comes from our sponsor this evening. Once again, thank you to the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver. This is question number 4. We're all aging, and the bulk of Canadian baby boomers are retiring or about to. How will you and your party ensure that these retirees who are suddenly on pensions and in reduced circumstances are able to remain in their neighborhoods? And we'll start with Brad Nickason from the Green Party of Canada.
I'm not going to lie. I don't have an answer for that. I don't.
Good on you, Brad.
Of course, I was going for a water break as he was doing that, so I will hold on for that. But I think everyone appreciates the shortness of that answer as well, except for me with the water. Nonetheless, we'll move on. Roland Sporticky from the People's Party of Canada.
I don't think anybody can give assurances on that matter, but what People's Party of Canada, I repeat, is doing is trying to put more money in people's pockets. For example, when it's about the individual taxes, the People's Party of Canada is going to implement zero tax up to 15,000 income per year. So that is on the personal taxes. So that will put more money. People are going to afford better the cost of living. So that is how we.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you. From the NDP, Christina Gower.
So the single largest expense right now is housing. We need to tackle housing affordability, first of all. Working in healthcare, this is what I see all the time. We have probably 4 to 5 people living on every unit because there's nowhere to discharge them home to that is appropriate and safe for them and their condition, and that costs about $1,500 a day per person, per unit, per hospital. So we need to make sure that people can buy their medication. We need to make sure that we get those 500,000 units of affordable housing. That is not a marketing term. It is tied to your income. And let me tell you, I have been dived deep into this subject with the BC Liberals, and their plan is for you to take care of your family when they're not well and sick. So we need to reinvest in healthcare. We need to make sure that our infrastructure is ready for the population that we have aging, and we need to get our health transfer payments back to the provinces. We are lacking $31 billion a year, and that was something cut by Conservatives and maintained by Liberals.
Thank you, Christina. Of the Conservative Party of Canada, Nicholas Inslee.
When it comes to addressing poverty for seniors, obviously that's an important issue. Many seniors live on fixed incomes, and that means that every penny counts. So our focus is going to be making certain that we return more money to people's pockets. That includes the universal tax cut, a policy that's targeted to the lowest income tax bracket, taking it from 15% to 13.75. For a 2-income household, this could mean up to $880. We're going to increase the senior age credit. For a couple of seniors, that could save them about $300 per year. Even small things like taking the GST off of home heating, because when you're living on a fixed income in an expensive city, every penny counts.
Thank you. Rob McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
So our national housing strategy is a $50 billion plan over 10 years. It will remove 535,000 people from core housing need. It will reduce poverty. It will do many of those things. It will provide options for social housing and various affordable housing options. Need to articulate, right?
Articulate, yeah.
There is a substantial amount of money for low-interest loans for rental properties. That's just one aspect of this. We've also invested money into home care options to provide unemployment insurance options for caregivers. We have increased the payments for OAS, so Old Age Security, and GIS, guaranteed income supplements for single low-income seniors. Such seniors should receive probably at this point another $1,700 a year. Recognizing that seniors...
Thank you, Ron. And we'll start the question period. I'd like to give Brad the first opportunity if you have any questions for the candidates, since you were so succinct.
I don't right now.
Perfect. Open up to everyone else. Any questions or further comments?
Comment as a nurse. So without that $31 billion a year, we are right now, 37,000 nurses short in Canada. 37,000. New nurses are quitting. By attrition, they are leaving the career within 5 years at a rate of 25%. 1 in 4 nurses just spent $40,000, $50,000 getting their nursing degree, and then they go to work, and the number 1 reason cited for quitting is workload. The number 2 is violence, and the 2 are completely related. When your needs aren't met, when you're at your worst, and you don't have enough nursing staff to take care of you, some people will get violent. So we need to get that health transfer payment back to the provinces.
Thank you, Christina. Other comments, questions? Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party.
Yes. I recognize the problem with healthcare workers and rate at which they're leaving the industry, or the field, if you will. We did a study in the Health Committee on dangers to healthcare workers, and it is one of the most dangerous professions out there. Dangerous, more dangerous than even being a police officer. One of the problems there is lack of funding by the province to the hospitals. Hospitals need to be better funded, they need to have better staffing and so forth. We absolutely support that the provinces would do that. We can't control how much money they give to the hospitals, but it is very important that they do so. But we as a society must be very careful not to be cutting taxes in areas where we have to be providing services. We cannot cut taxes on healthcare, we cannot cut taxes on education and not deliver those services. We need better services for healthcare workers.
Thank you, Ron.
And better education.
Christina Goward, NDP.
Okay, so it's not the provinces that are withholding the funds. It is the federal government that has not put in the planned healthcare increases in the transfer payments. So those plans are for the increase in population from immigration, from births, what have you, whatever's making us grow, and it's for the aging population. So they just scrapped that, and now basically we just have to keep pulling our wallets tighter and cutting care and making things unsafe for you, for workers. Our nursing profession that I work in, we're the #1 assaulted profession in the world, and people leave because of that, and you'll have less care, and that affects all of us.
Thank you, Christina. Any other comments? Seeing one more,
I'd just like to add very quickly that you cannot continue to adequately fund core health and social services for the provinces if you do not have a government in Ottawa that's spending responsibly. And that's something where the Liberals have failed.
Thank you. All right. There we go. All right, let's move on to the next section here. So thank you again, candidates, for your participation in that question. We are now going to go to the results of our first poll. And as you know, polls are never wrong. Just ask Premier Adrian Dix. It's 100% correct every time. But are you decided? I can't read the question from there, unfortunately. Are you decided or undecided on who to vote for in the upcoming federal election? Undecided came in at 58%. I'm just curious, Michael Hind, who leads up the Tri-City Chamber, how does that compare from last night in Port Moody? About the same. So 58% of our hundreds here and millions online are undecided. So this is a great opportunity for our 5 candidates here tonight to switch a lot of minds. So that's why we're here. Good stuff. That's good. That's good to hear. It's not just the great food and the entertainment. It's that's wonderful. All right. Let's move on. Sorry, they gave me some notes to read, which I just realized I'm not reading at all. So I'll just let you know what the witty notes were I was supposed to read. If more are undecided candidates, it looks like there's a real opportunity here to change some minds tonight. Thank you. Was that articulate enough? All right, let's keep on going here. Our second poll question is still live. And this one I think is really, really important. It's interesting to kind of take a temperature check, a barometer of what are the important issues. What are the top issues influencing your vote this election? And I believe there was 13 or so different questions. You can vote probably for about the next, was it 45 minutes or thereabouts, half hour, 45 minutes using Slido. And we'll get to those results in a little bit. And now is one of my favorite parts of the evening. We'll do questions from the audience that'll be coming up on Slido. And I apologize, I cannot read the monitor, so I'll have to kind of turn around a little bit here. A lot. I apologize. Well, let's go with the top question there. How's that? It's from Anonymous. Hopefully not the hacker group, but just someone who doesn't want their name used. If you could speak directly to a business owner currently in the emerging green economy or developing green technologies, what single policy proposal does your party claim will assist them to get established and or succeed locally? I know it's a mouthful there, so do you need me to repeat that, candidates? Are you good? All right. Start with Roland from the People's Party of Canada.
So I'm referring again to those $5 to $10 billion which are spending on foreign aid. The proposal, our party proposes to not give money, but to give Canadian products and Canadian services, especially the Canadian green products and Canadian green services, which will help both to the countries to which we give those that aid, Plus, we'll promote our Canadian economy and we'll increase the business for the small companies which are developing this kind of technologies, sustainable technologies. So instead of money, give products, Canadian products or Canadian services.
Thank you, Roland. Christina Gower.
It's really hard to boil that down to one single thing, so I'm going to say a couple probably. For one, the NDP will create 300,000 good jobs across this country right off the bat. We're going to get started on retrofitting homes and buildings so that they're net zero energy. We're going to pull the fossil fuel subsidies immediately, and we are going to redirect those into sustainable technologies like solar, geothermal, wind, that kind of thing. And we are going to make it a fair transition by helping workers from the oil industry into learning and training and assisting with them in getting employment in the newer fields and in Indigenous communities that are needing to build up some of that too. We want to spread that around there too.
And actually, if I could just ask a further question, Christina, just
Sure.
because it does ask for a single policy. Can you, and you mentioned a few there, which would you say is your top priority of what you
The
said?
300,000 great jobs.
Thank you so much. Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada.
I think generally speaking, the policies that we are offering to small business owners in terms of reducing regulation and ensuring that they have a business environment in which they can thrive in is an important way in which we can ensure that businesses are able to succeed in creating green technology. Our party policy when it comes to ensuring that polluters are held accountable for the environmental standards that will be set is ensuring that they invest in green technology when they fail to meet standards. So that's an important way in which we can ensure that we're bolstering green tech.
Thank you. Rod McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
We are committing to a net zero carbon economy by 2050. And part of that initiative involves companies that develop or manufacture net zero technology can receive an up to 50% cut in their corporate taxes. I think that would be the primo thing. We're also, of course, offering interest-free loans up to $40,000 based on an energy audit for people to upgrade their homes. And for new homes that are certified as net zero, we will offer a $5,000 grant. But the big thing, I think, is the cut to that 50% cut to corporate taxes.
And then the same question to you, of all those, which is the priority or which is the most important policy?
The cutting the 50%, cutting the corporate tax by 50% for those who develop or produce manufactured net zero technologies.
Great, thank you, Ron. Brad Nickason, Green Party of Canada.
I'm a tiny bit stunned tonight because I'm amazed at the amount of greenwashing that's going on tonight. One thing by us, by the Green Party, is the retrofitting of all buildings.
Just into the microphone. I appreciate you looking at me, but let's hear.
I just wanted to read my lips.
I got it.
The retrofitting of all buildings, not just homes, but all buildings in Canada, retrofitting them and putting people to work. There's great jobs and there's great opportunities for business in that.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you. All right, let's move on to or do we do the back and forth in this one too? Sure, why not? Why don't we do a couple of questions back and forth to the candidates or further comments if you like? Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
I want to talk about greenwashing. I want to admit that we are quite happy to take good green technology, green ideas from wherever we find them. And I'm very grateful that Brad's here to help us find them.
Thank you, Ron. We'll let Brad respond and then Christina Gower.
Because he talked to me, right?
That's exactly it.
So, and I appreciate that that not just Ron, but all the parties are trying to be as green as they possibly are. But it's impossible to do that if you're invested in fossil fuels one way or the other. And all of the parties are. So please explain that. All of you, explain how. If you want to, all of you, if you want to continue to invest money in fossil fuels, you want to slowly creep.
Thank you, Brad. I think they'll get it, and we're going to give Christina either the first opportunity to reply or present a new point on this topic, or both.
Prime Minister Trudeau declared a climate crisis, and the very next day approved a pipeline, and then he bought the pipeline with your money. So I would really like an explanation for that.
Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada. I'm guessing that's who it's to.
I'm happy to respond. Our climate plan, we've received, in the last 4 years, we've achieved 75% of of what we need to do to reach our Paris 2030 commitments. That incorporates things like the pipeline. That incorporates things like putting a cap on emissions from the oil sands. One of the prices of admission for Alberta, in order to be involved in our national, whatever we call that.
Debate?
Our national program on climate change was that they needed to be able to get their goods to market. In getting those guys on board, we achieved a commitment to reduce methane. We achieved a commitment to implement and develop alternative energy sources.
And I apologize, Ron, I need to cut you off. And maybe the words you're looking for was climate action plan, but I'm not.
Climate action plan, that's a good word. Thank you.
I win. Okay, any other comments on this topic? Christina Gower, NDP.
When you get that bitumen to market, what if we spill it along the way? And that is really distressing for, I think, our entire province and our coastal industries.
All right, and we'll take the last comment to Brad Nickason from the Green Party of Canada. Into the microphone,
I
of course.
appreciate how hard Christina's working on Ron, but I want to ask you how, because you've already linked provincial and federal governments and you've taken credit for that, how do you justify the fact that the BC government is doing LNG, which causes the same problems that you're talking about?
The last response here will be from Christina Gower from the NDP.
I cannot, and I've voiced my opinion very clearly with the BC government on that.
All right, thank you so much. And we'll move on to our second audience question here. Coming up. All right, there we go. From Heather. Thank you, Heather, for this question. What is your transportation policy? And let's start with Christina Gower from the NDP.
I haven't found the page yet. Just kidding, I know. So the NDP do want to work towards, with every level of government, to build infrastructure that is a net zero and low cost or even free public transport. So we want to electrify as much as possible. One of the first things that our leader, Jagmeet Singh, wants to do is build a corridor right across the entire country that is electrified and get that straight away so that people can really start investing in buying their electric vehicles immediately.
Thank you, Christina. Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada.
We actually recently had our leader, Andrew Scheer, in the Tri-Cities to make an announcement regarding core infrastructure funding that our party is going to be putting in place. Infrastructure money will go towards projects which help reduce congestion and help make certain that people can spend less time commuting and more time at home with their families. A great example of the past Conservative government's efforts to invest in infrastructure in our community would include the Evergreen Line expansion, something which helped bring people into our community easily and quickly, and also to get people out of their vehicles and into public transit.
Thank you, Nicholas. Rod McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
This is a huge question. I don't think a minute's enough. Transportation policy can involve ships, planes, cars. We have a clean fuel standard that's going to take 30 megatons of carbon out of the air over a period of time, per year. We are promoting electric vehicles. We are providing subsidies. We are building a network of 5,000 charging stations across the country. We are upgrading the rail systems to make sure they're more efficient and more effective. We are building new rail capacity here to reduce the amount of time people have to sit in their cars and wait for trains. There are so many ways that we are interacting with transportation that it's I'm going to stop there because I can't get to the rest of them.
No problem. Thank you, Ron McKinnon. Brad Nickason, Green Party of Canada.
Okay, so for what the Green Party's looking for is they're looking at electric rail as a way to move forward and bring our carbon emissions down quickly. But not only rail, but light rapid transit, on the ground, light rapid transit, not carbon intensive sky trains that produce a lot of cement, but rather light rapid rail and electric buses throughout the country. We're trying to, by 2030, what we intend to do by 2030 is to introduce that all across Canada in rural areas and provide it in the northern regions as well. Everyone in Canada has a right to safe and affordable transportation.
Thank you, Brad. Roland, People's Party of Canada.
As Mr. McKinnon said, transportation means trains, ships, pipelines. We are going to support the building of the pipeline, and it happens that most of my professional life I worked in the marine industry. I can tell you that as today, the marine industry is one of the cleanest industries, transportation industries around, and the technologies for the pipelines nowadays are extremely clean and safe. Now, I will say something else. It's very good that BC produces LNG, because within the marine industry, LNG is the absolutely cleanest fuel. So that is what we are going to support.
As we enter into the comments and questions on that, can I challenge the candidates here to bring it a little more local? I think there was a lot of great kind of provincial, even Canada-wide. There was some comments touching on Coquitlam-Port Coquitlam, but what's in it for us? What are you going to do for transportation for us here in the Tri-Cities, let's say? Well, the hands all came up. Actually, Christina stood up first, and that wins. So thank you.
So I'll be advocating to extend the SkyTrain at least into Port Coquitlam, where the West Coast Express station is. And I'd love to see something go further past Douglas College into Burke Mountain as well. I think we're so busy right now with traffic, and I think we're expecting about another 20,000 units of housing up there, which don't even get me started on that. But we need to take some of those cars off the road and get people accessible transit.
Thank you, Christina. Ron McKinnon, I think you were next.
Okay, I certainly support the extension of the SkyTrain to Port Coquitlam. We're also paying for extensions into Langley and into the University of British Columbia. Locally, we are also, as I mentioned before, we're doing the Pacific Gateway, which involves 3 crossings in this riding. And that will help stop our being delayed at traffic lights on Westwood Street or Kingsway and so forth. But it'll also move freight through the community faster with less noise and less difficulty.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. Thank you. Next, anyone else like comment or question? Thank you. Nicholas Inslee.
So just very quickly, another policy which the Conservatives will reintroduce, something which was eliminated by the current Liberal government, is a public transit tax credit. So for those people who take public transit on a regular basis out of the Tri-Cities to get into downtown Vancouver, this could save families about $374 per user per year. That's a fantastic way that we can encourage people to use public transit, but also to make certain that we're making life a little bit more affordable.
Nicholas Inslee, thank you. Any other comments?
Oh, just to brief somebody, so probably our party, it's not a party policy, but it's something which I will support deeply. The exhaust gas which is emanated by cars in the parking lots can be reduced by 80% by introduction of the automated parking systems. So that is a policy which I am going to propose. First of all, we are going to increase the parking capacity, which we are going to fluidize the traffic. And because the cars are not going to be driven into the parking lots, the exhaust emissions are going to be reduced by 80%.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you so much. Any other comments, questions on transportation policy here in the Tri-Cities? Christina Gower, NDP.
It's not really federal responsibility, but I would work with the local governments and TransLink to try and get our hours extended as well for SkyTrain. Working as a nurse, I bike commute now, so I ride about 15 kilometers before a 12-hour shift and then 15 kilometers home. But I don't even have the opportunity to take public transit because of the hours that I work. It takes too long to get there.
Thank you kindly. Any other comments? Last comment to Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party.
I agree with Christina. I think that's a great idea. We need to use SkyTrain more, and having it last longer and start earlier would be better for that.
Thank you so much. All right, let's move to our third audience question, which will come up on the screen in a moment, I believe. All right, here we go from Dan. Thank you for your question, Dan. I believe Canada can be a leader in green technology. What current clean energy options are we working on that we can invest in to kick our fossil fuel out and bring us closer to our zero emissions goal? I sense there's going to be a lot of picking apart of this question. And here we go. We'll start with Nicholas Inslee from the Conservative Party of Canada. It's a long one.
It's a bit of a different question to parse. So I think when it comes to, I don't think there's necessarily a need to, well, frankly, whilst we may want to invest in green technology and want to ensure that we have policies that allow green technology to be used as much as possible, we do not necessarily need to kick out fossil fuel. Fossil fuel remains a core part of how our economy functions, how it continues to grow, and that's going to remain the case for many years to come.
Thank you, Nicholas. Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
We have invested in geothermal energy production in Saskatchewan. We have invested in technology in Alberta that is doing research in geothermal energy production to make geothermal energy more usable, more accessible in more places. We have also invested in a fusion technology in Burnaby. That is very bleeding edge right now, but it has a lot of potential in the future. We're also investing in tidal power in places like the Bay of Fundy. And I think British Columbia is particularly well suited to make use of tidal power. We have huge currents in various places that would generate enormous amounts of energy if we utilize it properly.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you so much, Ron. Brad Nickason, Green Party of Canada. He was just burning to say something, I think.
I'm having a lot of problems with this because I'm hearing that that we're talking about investing about all of this stuff, but what we're not recognizing that as long as we continue to go towards carbon intensive fuels, that it holds back the investments in this exact thing. People won't do this. They won't invest money unless we get rid of those carbon things. Yet we have people who continue to say, hey, it's okay, we're going to put off our kids' future. Let our kids deal with it. It's all right. So there are many things that we can do. There are many things that we are doing in our country, but it is being held back by these people's attitudes towards fossil fuels.
Thank you, Brad. Roland Spornicue from the People's Party of Canada.
It also happened that I work for a company with this name, Clean Energy Consulting, an engineering company here in BC, which develops power plants which are using biomass and run-of-river systems. That is, you divert the river and you produce electric energy. So I think this question is actually more a technological question, what is possible, and I can tell you the Canadian technology, it's very advanced in many types of clean energy production. I mentioned 2 types of energy production, but also, as Mr. McKinnon said, the geothermal and geo-exchange systems are very popular. They are not feasible in all places in Canada. Also, we have the wave energy, which we have, even here in BC, we have several companies who developed huge...
Thank you, Roland. Thank you for that. Sorry. Okay. I want to make sure I'm trying to be as fair as I can to all the candidates with cutting you off. So, Christina Gower, NDP.
I actually, when Trump got into power, sorry for saying that word, I wrote a long letter to Prime Minister Trudeau and said, you know, we have this opportunity right now. We have a 4-year head start because that guy's not going to do anything good for clean energy. And I begged him to not approve the Trans Mountain, or Kinder Morgan at the time, pipeline, and of course he did. That's just a comment. I just want to talk about Alberta, actually, which is our oil-rich, richest province.
You got about 5 seconds.
Rachel Notley arranged it so that 90% of the green technology in Canada being developed is in Alberta. So the NDP worked on that first.
Thank you, Christina. Nicholas Inslee. Or sorry, I apologize. Yes, I lost track of my, my comments here. It's questions or comments to each other. Thank you. Sorry about that. Ron McKinnon.
I'd like to answer Brad's question about how can we continue to invest in fossil fuels while we are serious about developing green technology. I'd like to ask everyone in this room who drives a gas vehicle, how many of you are willing to throw your keys in the bin right now and walk home? 1, 2, and I welcome you to do that. 3, 4, 5, please do that.
And just speaking to the microphone, Ron.
Please do that. And, but the rest of you aren't going to do that, right? And how many of you who are going to go home and turn your furnaces off and go out and invest in a heat pump?
Great. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Ron, and thanks for the audience for participating in there. Brad Nickason, Green Party of Canada.
Okay,
And right into the microphone.
thank you. That's a really typical kind of response to that. Like, that's to try to say that that's what we're about. What we want to do is make you stop right now. That is not the case, and he knows it, and that was just dishonest. It was dishonest to say that. What we're talking about is making a transition, getting these guys to think in terms of making a transition quickly, and to do that, we have to start thinking very clearly about our plans, how to stop using the fossil fuels we have. Stop investing in them, and let them transition away. So it's dishonest to think that I want you to put your keys in the garbage right now and all go out and buy a car. Well, I know that's unaffordable.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Brad. And I will give an opportunity to Ron McKinnon from the Liberal Party to respond.
That is not my implication. My point is that
But that's how it came on.
we
That's
need. I have the floor here, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. I don't want that job. Okay.
So my point is that we all need to take time. We need to transition into new technologies. Most of us here, I suspect, are interested in green technologies, but many of us burn fossil fuels in our homes. Many of us burn fossil fuels in our cars. Yet we still are interested in developing green technology. We are still interested in promoting green technologies. The fact that we still have to use fossil fuels for a while does not detract from that. It does not stop us from doing that. And that's my point.
Thank you, Ron. We'll go with Brad, and then the last one to Christina at the end. But Brad Nickason, please go ahead.
And so again, Ron knows that that was not what I was asking. I am saying that if you stand in the way of new investment, if you get in the way of it with this, we all know where what oil is happening. We're trying to squeeze. They're trying to help their friends squeeze the last little bit of profit out of it, when what we know for our children and our children's future is what we need to make that investment now. We need to start that investment now. No one will make that investment if we continue to help along the oil companies.
Thank you, Brad. Christina Gower, NDP.
I just want to understand how us driving our cars home has anything to do with diluted bitumen being shipped away from our own country and putting our Burnaby Mountain. 13,000 people could immediately die with an explosion on a tank on the farm on Burnaby Mountain immediately, and then in the tens of thousands will be hospitalized and probably die a bit later. So I'm really upset about that.
Thank you, Christina. And thank you, candidates. If you have a response, I'm going to ask you to put that in your closing, or else we could be here quite a while. And this is a fascinating topic, but there's many, many more that I'd like to get to. I'm sure the crowd would as well. So let's go to our next question. Very suspenseful. Here we go. All right, again, second question from Anonymous. Here we go. What is your position on electoral reform and proportional representation? If you're in favor of pro-rep, which system do you think would be best for Canada? All right, and we'll start with Ron McKinnon from the Liberal Party of Canada.
This is my issue. This is something I've done a lot of work on. I have a whole website about electoral reform, but not about proportional representation. I know how it works. I know there's a way that various ways we can do it. I'm certainly in favor of electoral representation or electoral reform. I've had many discussions with the Prime Minister about this. Since he said no, I was very disappointed. And I continue to work forward on that. But I would ask everyone to go to condorcet.ca and check out the system I'm proposing. I think it's a great way forward for Canada. I think it's easily implemented, and I look forward to continuing to promote it.
Thank you, Ron. Brad Nickason, Green Party of Canada.
So I'm glad that Ron thinks that this is his issue. But I think this is the Green Party's issue. This is the point that you can see the difference between the Green Party and the traditional parties that have been. when Ron fought for that, and he did, and he had a good argument for the system that he wanted, and he, as he said, he's fought for it, and I appreciate that you did that. However, he failed in that because he's in a whipped party, and his party did not want that. All of these people are in whipped parties, and it's a failure of our system. The power exists in the PMO's office. The Green Party and Elizabeth May has made us the promise that we are individuals who are going to represent our constituents, not represent our party to our constituents.
Thank you, Brad. I apologize. That's your 30 seconds or so. I know you want to respond. I'll start with you in the responses, Ron. But we're moving on to Roland Sporticue from the People's Party of Canada.
So I'm not aware of any electoral reform which is proposed by the People's Party of Canada. I'm going to discuss that within the party, and I will come with a response.
Thank you so much, sir. Moving on to NDP, Christina Gower, sorry.
When the NDP comes into government, we will immediately put into legislation that we will do MMP, the mixed member representation, and go from there. So we're doing it.
Thank you, Christina. Nice and short again. Thank you. Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada.
The Conservative Party has no plans to change our current way in which we elect members of Parliament. This is in contrast, though, to what the Liberals promised last election, and something which, when I have heard it brought up on the door, is something which people express a lot of disappointment in. And it is just another example of how the Liberals have broken their promises. Electoral reform was one of the key planks in their last party's election platform, and it's something which they have yet again broken a promise on and failed to deliver for Canadians.
Thank you, Nicholas. Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada. Or sorry, this is your opportunity to, no, sorry, Ron, you're the last one on this question.
Ron started.
You went first.
Sorry about that. I'm having some trouble here doing two things at the same time. I apologize, but Ron, you wanted to respond there earlier on.
I'm sorry?
It appeared you wanted to respond to something Brad had said, and I said I'd give you the first opportunity.
Yeah, Brad said I failed. I haven't failed. I just haven't succeeded yet. He says it's because we're a whip party. Well, our whip doesn't work that way. Our party doesn't work that way. The PMO does not exert that kind of influence. I see the people who are laughing. They actually have no idea how it all works. We are able to express ourselves, to put private members' business forward if we wish, and to vote on private members' business according to our conscience and according to our constituents, if that is.
Thank you, Ron, and Brad, and then Nicholas.
So if you're allowed to vote as your conscience in that, and if it's something that was in your platform and you promised to Canadians, and then it didn't happen, how did that not happen?
Ron McKinnon, to respond to that question, please.
Well, this didn't come to a vote. There was no legislation brought forward. It failed in committee.
So it did fail.
We actually put a committee together where we gave up our majority, where we implemented a proportional seating that roughly corresponded to the so-called the proportionality of the general election. The Conservatives wanted no change, so they insisted on a referendum. The NDP, the Green Party, they wanted proportional representation. The Liberals on the committee were undecided. But in any case, we lost control of the committee, we lost control of the process, and the recommendation that came forward was not implementable in the time frame allowed.
Thank you, Ron. I promised Nicholas Inslee from the Conservative Party of Canada would be next.
Ron, in fairness, you have a majority government. You are precisely in the position to take action on things that matter to you. I'll also point out that, when you talk about people being able to express themselves in your caucus, when you had a cabinet minister express that she was concerned about the Prime Minister's action on an ongoing criminal case, you guys threw her out of caucus.
Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada. I know this could quickly get off topic here, so I'm curious how you're going to bring it back to what we're talking about. So I'm going to be looking for that.
What are we talking about?
Proportional representation, or at least...
So while we do have a majority in the House, we voluntarily gave that up for the committee that was going to propose a solution. As far as Ms. Wilson-Raybould is concerned, we kept her in the party for quite a long time, until it was very clear that she did not support the leader. And you can't run for the party if you don't support the leader. That's just that simple.
Great. Thank you, Ron. Sorry, just waiting for the cheers to subside. Brad Nickason from the Green Party.
I just want to make this comment because I heard Mr. Inslee making, and I'm not defending Ron in any way. Ron is my friend and I like Ron, but I'm not defending him in this case. Mr. Inslee, you implied things about the Liberal Party in terms of impropriety, but if you go back to your previous Prime Minister, could you talk about robocalls and what they did in their scandal towards Canadians?
All right, Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada. I think he's going to. Thank you for the cheering.
I'll point out that
Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada, your turn.
Justin Trudeau's managed to break a lot of records.
No, not Justin Trudeau. Not just.
Sorry, folks, if you let him use his time and then
You've made an
you're welcome to
accusation
respond.
against the previous government and the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister was not implicated in any way in that instance. What we have, however, right now is a Liberal government where you have a Prime Minister who has twice broken ethics laws. That's an issue.
Thank you, Nicholas. Brad, it seems like you want to follow up there.
Answer the question. Answer the question about the Conservative Party and robocalls. Like, how are you going to be perfect going forward? That's the issue. We've got parties that are continuously doing this kind of things, and they're not working for Canada's
Nicholas
benefit.
Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada.
I'm running under Andrew Scheer's banner for the Conservative Party of Canada. You're talking about something which happened before I was involved in politics, but thank you.
Okay. And so actually, sorry, I'm gonna for the audience, please, if I'd like the questions to be on electoral reform, proportional representation. If you somehow had brought it around, I would have given you bonus points, but it wasn't even close. So let's stick to this topic, and then certainly if a question comes up that's more appropriate to what we were just talking about, I will attempt to ask that. But are we anything else on electoral reform or proportional representation? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next question. Water? Oh, sorry. I thought you wanted water. Very strange thing. All right, which number is water there? Number 2, thank you. From LLD. Thank you. Many Indigenous communities live under constant boil water advisories. What would you and your party do to bring water equity to all communities? And we'll start with Brad Nickason from the Green Party of Canada.
Wow. You caught me again at a loss. Because I'm looking. I'm gonna pass on this question, but hopefully I can come back and answer this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brad. Next, Roland. Oops, sorry, my phone fell. Roland from the People's Party of Canada.
I think the policy from People's Party of Canada, it is to implement.
If you could speak up, Roland.
The policy, I'm not aware of a clear policy from People's Party of Canada about this particular item. But I know that People's Party of Canada is fostering the development of the infrastructure in all areas of Canada, including the Indigenous communities. That is in our policy, developing the infrastructure. So probably that includes the...
Thank you, Roland. Thank you. Christina Gower, NDP.
The NDP is committed to a true nation-and-nation relationship with the Indigenous peoples, reconciliation, recognition of Indigenous rights, and equal funding. Under our plan, we are going to provide safe housing, clean drinking water, access to health care, much more. But the drinking water, we have a target date for 2021, and we want to empower Indigenous communities to be their own stewards on that and be in control of that as well.
Thank you, Christina. Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada.
Working with First Nations in order to end the boil water advisories and make certain that they have access to clean and safe drinking water is something which needs to be a priority for all parties.
Thank you, Nicholas. Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
Chief Perry Bellegarde, National Chief of the Assembly of First
A
Nations.
little closer to the microphone.
Chief Perry Bellegarde, National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, says that our government has done more for Indigenous reconciliation and Indigenous rights than any government in the last 50 years. I've heard others say better than any government ever. We have resolved most of the long-term water advisories, with all slated to be finished by early 2021. We should remember that there are over 1,000 public water systems on reserves across Canada. We have undertaken over 500 projects involving upgrading, repairing, training, replacing, and that work is ongoing, and that will be finished in due course. We are very concerned with the quality of life on reserves, and we are on the mark for our promised objectives. or are exceeding them. And in this election, we've actually promised to take on more.
Thank you. Can I have a minute? So we've come to the 30 seconds questions and or comments.
I'm going to fail miserably on this because of my reasons, because of my preparation, and I apologize to the Green Party of Canada for that. But it is huge in the Green Party's platform to reconcile Indigenous people in Canada. I can't state how important it is that we've had parties that have failed to do this, and our policy is to make this central in the three things that we want to do starting out of the gate. And if we get into a position of minority government, this is one of our top issues. Reconciliation with First Nations. The water part of it has thrown me because I don't know an exact policy on water.
No problem, Brad. Sorry, that's time there. Thank you so much. Any of the other candidates want to weigh in with a question or comment on this particular issue? Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
I'd just like to comment as well that in addition to resolving most of the long-term water advisories, we have signed historic new collaborative health deals and education accords and established processes to work collaboratively with all Indigenous partners in land, wildlife, and fish management. We've assisted numerous groups in moving towards self-government, and the list goes on. Our objective in splitting off the old Indigenous Affairs office into a Crown Indigenous Relation and an Indigenous Service is that we need to focus Crown Indigenous Relations on the nation-to-nation relationship to work through those modern treaties to resolve the land claims. We're resolving claims with Indigenous people at a rate 3 times faster than has been done before.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you so much. All right, and the question I want to come to, and I'm glad that the moderators behind me have picked this one up. This one caught my attention. I'm always curious about this one. So thank you, Greg, for putting this in. What is the one policy, or I'll actually expand it, what are the one or more policies that you and the leader of your party, disagree on? And we'll start with Roland Spornicue from the People's Party of Canada.
Our leader, Maxime Bernier, is not in agreement with the Paris Climate Accord and emission targets. We reject climate alarmism, no federal imposition. Provinces have the right to decide on any targets and any policies with regard.
I'm sorry, just to be clear, it's what you feel personally that
No, that is from our platform.
No, sorry. The question is, you as an individual, as a candidate with your party, how do you disagree, or is there any policies that you disagree with your leader?
No, sorry, I misinterpreted. No,
No
I
problem.
don't disagree with any policies which our leader is
Great.
promoting.
Thank you, sir. Christina Gower from the NDP.
So we touched on the BC NDP, which is not who I'm running with, but I was very vocal against Site C and LNG plants. That being said, I'm an activist. I've been an activist for almost 30 years now. So when I was asked to run for Parliament, I was first of all shocked because I will give any politician the gears about things I think are unjust. But after spitting out my tea and going home and spending 4 months poring over the platform, I have zero contention with this platform. I am touched and warmed and thrilled that we have covered so comprehensively everything that we need to do to begin to heal our country and become whole again. However...
Thank you, Christina. Sorry.
Okay.
I apologize. I'm going to give you a little more leniency on this question because I'm very curious.
Something.
There is something? Go ahead then. I'm going to give you a little more time. Thank
it's
you.
what Brad brought up was about the whipped vote. I agree with the whipped vote if it's based on your platform. So people know what they're getting when they're voting for you. However, if...
Great, thank you. If you could be a little more succinct, and why don't we start with the policy or policies that you disagree with, and if you don't, start with that and then elaborate. But I feel I'll be honest, I'm feeling there's a little dancing going on, and it is a theater. But let's if the answer is no, let it be no.
It wasn't a linear thought; it just kept coming.
Thank you. Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada. Any policies that you disagree with your leader?
Having knocked on thousands of doors in this community and understanding that affordability remains the top issue, I'm very confident in the platform that we're offering that addresses this for Canadians.
So to be clear, because I'm going to push you guys on this, you don't disagree with any policies of your leader?
That's correct.
That's correct. So we're 3 for 3 here. All right. Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
Well, I'm on board with our platform also.
Well, yes, but how about with all?
But the one policy I would disagree with my leader on would be electoral reform. I believe I would have liked to have gone forward, and he didn't. I talked with him about it. We're not dead in the water yet, but that's reasonable people do differ sometimes, and we are engaging in ongoing conversations.
So if I could challenge you on that a little further, is that a policy you'll be bringing up, should you be elected and the party forms government again? Is that a policy that you would bring forward?
I've never let it go.
Fair enough. Thank you, Ron. Brad Nickason, Green Party of Canada. Anything you disagree with your leader on?
So in the political way that we're doing this tonight, I too support my platform entirely.
Okay.
However, there are things that within my party that, not my party, with my leader that or because she's responsible, that I would do differently. I would think that might have been done differently, but that's.
Can you name an example?
Personal things. No, I can't at this moment.
Okay.
Because would that be fair?
All right, I'm going to ask an easier question. Which of your children do you like the least? Because,
my cat.
I will say, who here was happy with those answers? Horrible. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I have to say, I'm a bit disappointed. You've got 30 seconds. I mean, it's okay to agree with your party. I guess that's fine, but I'm shocked. I mean, I love my wife, but there's she's watching. There's one or two things I may not like. She's perfect in every way, but I mean, I still have some issues, so.
You might want to let it go.
Yeah, I'm going to stop that. I love you, Lynn. All right.
I would like, to debate directly with you on this case.
Perfect.
In my case,
yeah.
I believe entirely in the platform because of the ethical approach that they're trying to take take to Ottawa, so that we are working for our future generations. So I do believe wholeheartedly in our platform.
All right. Anyone else want to take another shot at that one? Didn't think so. Okay, let's move on. Next, our third question from Anonymous. Foreign investment has been leaving Canada rapidly over the last 5 years. How can your party change that trend? And we'll start with Christina Gower from the NDP. I'll repeat the question. Foreign investment has been leaving Canada rapidly over the last 5 years. How can your party change this trend? And I will add that if you disagree with kind of the premise of the statement, please feel free to respond in that way as well.
This is what I was wondering. I'm not sure about the numbers. I don't know that it is actually decreasing unless we're talking real estate, which, by the way, will put a 15% tax on foreign purchases of real estate to stop the speculation. But I honestly, this is unbeknownst to me, so I can't really comment further.
Thank you, Christina Gower, NDP. Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada.
Setting up an environment in which businesses want to invest in this country is something extremely important. That means having competitive tax rates. It means ensuring that we have limited regulation to allow companies the opportunity to invest here. I think that's something important and something we want to continue to see happen.
Thank you, Nicholas Inslee. Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
Well, the premise of the question is false. Foreign investment is actually up in Canada 60% last year. It is down in the oil patch, and I understand that because people are less interested in investing in fossil fuels. They want to invest in the green technologies. But investment is up by 60% in the last year, and part of that is because people around the world see Canada as a safe place to do business, a place where we have rule of law, a place where we have a government that works with business, that will develop entrepreneurs, that will provide training, that will support them in what they do. So we're working forward, as we have done in the past, to grow the economy from all sources.
Thank you, Ron. Brad Nickason, Green Party of Canada, same question.
Okay, very, very quickly. That question went away. Now I can't read it.
If you put the question back up, it has to do with foreign investment leaving rapidly.
It's fine. What I'm going to say is one of the things that is investment's going to come and go at times. You're going to lose some people. But what we need to be looking at is what are the opportunities that are in front of us. The opportunity of the globe's lifetime is in front of us right now in clean green technology. Elizabeth Warren, about a week ago, in the Democratic primaries mentioned that the market in the United States for 10 years for green technology will be $23 trillion. If we get a jump on that, if we get a jump on green technology and we start selling in there, we now will create that kind of investment into our country. But if we continue to slow this down and continue to creep along and not make these investments right now, we're going to lose that opportunity, and we will forever be hewers of, or choppers of wood and hewers of water. We will only be
Thank you,
based
Brad.
in resource.
Thank you so much. Roland Spornicue, People's Party of Canada.
Well, we have to ask ourselves why the investments, the foreign investments are decreasing in Canada. And probably that has something to do with the taxes. So our party is working to reduce the taxes, and especially the capital gain taxes. But maybe something else. Maybe our tax code is so complicated that not even the people in the CRA understand it perfectly. So to facilitate foreign investment is something on our platform to do.
Thank you, Roland. Any other comments, questions on this topic? Otherwise, let's move to our, what will most likely be our last question. I'd like to take number 4 on the list here from Ken W. The question is, the Prime Minister announced he would ban semi-automatic assault weapons and enable municipalities to restrict or prohibit handguns. What is the efficiency of focusing police resources on targeting lawful gun owners rather than criminals? There's, again, a lot in here. Please feel free to dissect it, 1 minute each. And we will start with Nicholas.
I think it's deeply unfortunate that the moment the Liberals found themselves mired in scandal, that they immediately decided to attack law-abiding gun owners. We saw this as they tried to deflect from recent indiscretions that the Prime Minister had. And this isn't the right approach. We want to make certain that we are not going after law-abiding gun owners who want to safely and legally use firearms. We want to be going after gangs and criminals and people who actually pose a threat to our communities. That's who we should be going after, not people who safely use firearms.
Thank you, Nicholas Inslee. Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
We're going after guns, not people. We recognize that there is a legitimate use of guns in our society. We recognize that sports shooters have a legitimate interest in a legitimate sport. But we understand that public safety requires certain boundaries be drawn, and we have to adjust those boundaries as we go forward to maintain the public safety. I fully support this proposal and look forward to working with the gun community to find the right way as we go forward to draw those lines that respects their legitimate interests.
Thank you, Ron. Brad Nickason, Green Party of Canada.
This references semi-automatic assault weapons, and they're semi-automatic assault weapons. What's wrong with getting rid of semi-automatic assault weapons? Boom. There is absolutely no need for that kind of weapon in Canada under any circumstances, even target shooting. This is a creep to an American problem, and let's nip that in the bud right now.
Thank you, Brad. Roland Spornicue, People's Party of Canada.
Our party position is that anybody who's mentally sane should be able to own a firearm. Now, the Parliament of Canada is the one to determine which weapons are allowed and which one not, based on the functionality, not on the appearance of the gun. So I don't see a problem with owning.
Speaking of the microphone.
I don't see a problem with owning guns as long as the person who owns the gun it is mentally sane, and as long as he respects the regulations which are already in place.
Thank you, Roland. Christina Gower, NDP.
A couple things. I work in one of the busiest trauma hospitals in the province. We see people from Boston Bar to Boundary Road, Burnaby, Vancouver border, and we get all the shooting victims mostly. So I get to talk with the RCMP and the various detectives that come in, and these guns are basically brought up from the States, and I really feel like You got it. And I really feel like offloading this onto the municipalities is not the right approach. I feel like we need to beef up our security in our ports and at our borders as far as checks.
Thank you. If any of the candidates are going to jump in, I do ask that maybe you focus on the last part of the question here about focusing police resources on targeting lawful gun owners rather than criminals. Maybe you can comment to that. If not, that's fine too. But Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, Ron, I just have a quick question for you on this because there's been footage circulated of you recently firing an AR-15 rifle at a local gun range when you were visiting there. So that's a rifle which you would have banned under this proposed legislation. How do you square your actions with your words?
Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
I was delighted to take a meeting with the Port Coquitlam Hunting and Fishing Club in my office. I heard their concerns. I conveyed their concerns to the minister in a letter. I also arranged a meeting with the minister and the gun club as well, so they could tell their concerns directly to the minister. In good faith, I accepted their invitation to appear or to visit their range, to experience firsthand what their sport is like and to understand it. Unfortunately, they tried to use it to embarrass me or to discredit me. I am not embarrassed, I'm not discredited, and I stand ready, fully prepared to work with them as we go forward to find the right place to draw the line between public safety and their legitimate interests.
Thank you, Ron. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, that ends our question period. Round of applause for our candidates. Thank you so much. All right. Before we move on with closing statements, we want to share with you the results of the second poll question. I'm actually very, very interested to see how this plays out here. What are the top issues influencing your vote this election? Let's go here. What are the top 3 issues? The environment at 81%, housing affordability and cost of living at 33%, economic growth and good jobs at 22%. Let me just ask Michael Hind from the Chamber, how does that compare with last night? So similar top 3 or exact same top 3? Exact same top 3 here in Coquitlam-Port Coquitlam as in Port Coquitlam, I think it is. People, how about the percentages or the intensity? Like 81%, I have to say, I'm quite surprised by that. 81%? That's higher. Okay. It doesn't surprise me that housing's in there. We do live in the Tri-Cities, so that doesn't surprise me. Economic growth is in there. And borders, Indigenous reconciliation and income inequality and fighting poverty round out the bottom of the list. I think this is an interesting way to go. And it's too bad there wasn't a write-in. I'm wondering if there's any issues that were not on the list there. That'll be interesting to see. But let me ask a question before we get to the statements. You've now heard about an hour and a half or hour and 3/4 of debate and comments, and thank you again to our candidates. Is there anyone here in the crowd tonight that came in either undecided or thinking you know your vote, but your vote has now changed? I see 1, 2, 3. I'll call it 5 or 6 in the crowd. I'm not going to ask you to say who you are. I'm just glad no hands went up on the stage because that would have been weird. I would have actually asked a lot of questions, and I think the audience would have liked that too. But since that didn't happen, thank you for that. So that's interesting. So there are some minds that have been changed here this evening, and so that's what it is. And I'm sure the millions at home as well. There'll be a number of people who have changed their minds. So thank you very much. And that's what I think someone yelled out from the crowd earlier on. That's why you're here. You're here to hear the great insights and commentary, et cetera. And so I thank you for that. So we are now moving on to our 2-minute closing statements. We'll proceed in the reverse order of how we started out the night. So we'll start on the end closest to me. From the People's Party of Canada, Roland Spornicue.
This country gave so much to me, especially the hope that I'm going to live with dignity and I'm going to live out of fear. Now I think it is my turn to use my experience, my wisdom, my time, my resources to do the best I can do for the country. It's my deep desire to be the part of the solution that ensures the country stays united, that the country is strong, and our nation is at its maximum freedom. My vision for Canada, it is a society where people are living in harmony with each other and in harmony with nature. To achieve that, I believe that we have to preserve the core Canadian values, and stimulate the sustainable progress of the sustainable progress of the society through innovation and entrepreneurship as well. Throughout the fact it is that throughout the last 152 years of this Canadian Confederation, there were only two parties who were elected to govern the country. We see now both of them turning to left and implementing some of the neo-Marxist doctrine, some of the neo-Marxist elements of doctrine. Yeah, that's true. I can argue with that, and I can show you the arguments. Maybe the people who are today on power, they are good people with good intentions, but the results show that they are not doing the things in the right way. Our country deficit today is to the roof. Our population is divided, and our freedom of expression is totally suppressed. So I would say stop the repeat offenders, don't re-elect them. PPC now is building a practical alternative to the political establishment in Canada. We are advocating for the real solutions that matter to Canadians. We need our Canadian identity, not forced multiculturalism. We need prosperity, not enslavement. We need security and peace of mind.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you so much. A round of applause for Roland Spornicki from the People's Party of Canada. Lovely applause. Thank you. Christina Gower from the NDP. Oh, sorry.
Were we going backwards? Or?
I apologize. Yes, I went in the wrong, got into a groove there. Thank you. Brad Nickason from the Green Party of Canada.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. This has been, it's been awesome. We face a challenge and an opportunity.
A little closer to the mic, sorry.
I'm going to go right back to where I was today at the beginning. We face a challenge and an opportunity that has never been seen by humanity. In a different, we're facing a different kind of enemy that's coming at us, and it creeps, and we don't get to see it coming fully every day. But we've noticed things like we live in a rainforest and it hasn't rained that much like it used to. These things are happening. And all of us, many of us, we won't see the worst of it. But our children and our grandchildren absolutely will. It's not a disaster movie scenario, but it's an uncertainty that we have not had to address. And so I'm asking you to put aside the kind of government that we've seen. One government does something and the other government changes it back, and we get nowhere. We see poverty creeping in this country. We see it growing in the Vancouver East End and what it's becoming. Our country is changing for the worse. We need a new kind of vision for our country, a vision that brings people together, and that's what the Green Party is trying to do. They're trying to work with people from every party who's reasonable and look to the future, look to the opportunities that are there, and do the heavy lifting for our kids, so when their time comes that they have to take this over, it won't be impossible. We can do that. This is our challenge. This is our time to do that. I'm asking you to join me in that struggle and vote Green this election, this October 21st. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad Nickason, Green Party of Canada. Next up, Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada.
We know that climate change is real and happening right now, and I am committed to protecting the environment and fighting climate change. This means switching to clean energy, pricing pollution, protecting our oceans and wild places, and banning harmful single-use plastics. In only 4 years, we have already taken action that gets us 75% of the way to our Paris 2030 goals. We will exceed our 2030 targets and reach a carbon net zero economy for 2050. We have to do that. We're the only party that is taking actual, comprehensive action to tackle the climate crisis. But we also have a booming $2.3 trillion economy. Unemployment is at an all-time low. Prosperity is on the rise. We've cut taxes for the middle class, and 9 out of 10 families are better off. And a re-elected Liberal government will cut your taxes again, drop your cell phone bills by 25%, and bring in universal Medicare, pharmacare. We have the lowest debt burden in the entire G7 and are spending less on debt servicing than during the Conservative era. We are one of only 2 G7 countries with a AAA credit rating. Don't get sucked in by Conservative austerity. This only means cuts to necessary government services and programs, boutique benefits to the already well-to-do, and hardship upon the most vulnerable among us. They will bring our robust growth and prosperity to a screeching halt. It's exactly why Tory times are tough times. They will abandon the critical fight for climate change and dash any hopes for Paris 2030, much less net zero for 2050. And why is their platform not available until the advanced polls? What are they hiding? Are they winging it? You have a choice to make. Keep moving forward and build on the progress we've made, or go back to the politics of the Harper Conservatives.
Thank you,
I'm
Ron
for choosing
McKinnon.
forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron McKinnon, Liberal Party of Canada. Next up, Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada.
I'm going to keep this very brief because this election is important and you do face a very clear choice. With the Liberals, you have a government which has spent irresponsibly, added billions to the national debt, has no plan to return our budget to balance in the near future, and one which has raised taxes for 80% of Canadian families. If you want a government which will spend responsibly and lower taxes so that people can make life more affordable for families, then you need to vote Conservative.
Thank you. Nicholas Inslee, Conservative Party of Canada. And our last speaker for the evening, Christina Gower from the NDP.
What do you think a psych nurse would say about you doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? Please go to ndp.ca, click on the commitments, look at our comprehensive platform. It's to die for me as an activist. I am not a politician. I got asked to do this, and I couldn't do it if I didn't stand wholeheartedly behind it. Please vote NDP.
Thank you, Christina Gower, NDP. Thank you so much. Also want to thank our sponsor, the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Association. I also want to thank all of you. You have an amazing decision to make on October 21st, and you can vote for any of these candidates on or off the stage as you decide you like. Have a great evening, everyone.